Today is December 7th, 2018. My name is Maggie Rivas Rodriguez, and I am interviewing José Luis Aliseda for the Voces Oral History Project in McAllen, Texas. Mr. Aliseda, thank you so much for letting us hear your stories and share with us your memories. Just to establish, this interview will be housed at the Nettie Lee Benson Latin American Collection at UT Austin. Mm-hmm. And it'll be there for whoever wants to view it. And then at the end of it, we'll ask you some other questions about different permissions. But just so you know that the interview will be open to the public. So if there's anything that you don't want people to know about, then this would not be a good time to tell them. Your wife is sitting here too, so if there's any secrets that you have from her, this may not be a good time to...
Let's speak louder, please.
Okay, I will speak louder.
That's again, yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you. You have a very interesting background because you were, your family was from Spain. Can you tell us a little bit about your family and its connection to the Spanish Civil War?
Well, my father was, first of all, my father was a teacher, one of the main and chief of Primera Enseñanza in the province of Badajoz, And when he was a teacher, he was able to establish several schools in the province. And later on, he decided to become a lawyer, and he went to, as a lawyer, he went to Madrid, became a lawyer, and when he later on was, he was a representative, chosen as a representative for Badajoz, one of the several representatives for Badajoz, And my mother was a housewife too, from the same town, from Don Benito. And the background is that they come from very humble families, but my father was able to become a prominent member at a young age in the Spanish government.
So the Spanish Civil War broke out in 1936?
Yes, in July 18th of 1936. Yeah.
So how did that affect your family?
Well, in the way that we were in Badajoz, and the Franco troops came into Badajoz in August, a month later, August 14th, and at the time, one day before they took Badajoz, we left for Portugal. Otherwise, so much that my mother would have been jailed or something. My father wasn't with us at that time. We left from Portugal, and we were, even when we went to Portugal, we were living for a few days with my nana, the one that they had, a Portuguese lady in a town called Esperanza, close to the border. From there, later on, we moved to Bordeaux, and my father had arranged already that we took the ship from Lisbon to Bordeaux.
In France?
Yeah, in France. And
so why was your father not with you all when you went to Portugal?
Well, my father was in Madrid.
Oh, he was in Madrid?
Yes. He was with the government.
Okay, so he was serving, but he was a diputado, right?
Yes. And he was, it's true, my father, I think when in Bordeaux, he was there at the time of arrival in Bordeaux, still northern part of Spain. He was able to travel to France. But we were not able to cross to the Republican side, that means we went to France,
So he went to Bordeaux. He set up a ranch or some kind of a farm?
No.
Oh, I thought you said he had a ranch in Bordeaux.
No, we never had. No, I was in school.
Okay.
We didn't have any ranch there.
So he had already established himself in Bordeaux.
My father?
Yes.
No, my father was with the government.
Okay. So
my father he was with the government until the end of the war. I show you the paper. When they had the last reunion of Cortes in close to the border of France. You can see. My father didn't come with us. He made trips to Bordeaux. He made some trip in 1937, But later on, he didn't come to us until February of 1939, at the end of the war, you know.
So, do you remember how the war affected him?
Well, he never talked too much about the war, you know. I'm going to tell you. I knew in Mexico, when we were in Mexico, several of the friends of my father, you know, that they were very important in the Spanish Republican government, you know. But he never talked to us about the war, you know. And I came to know about the Spanish Civil War more in relation to when I read George Orwell, My Homage to Catalonia. You know, that was the first time that I get some idea of the war. You know, keep in mind George Orwell was in the Spanish Civil War, and when he was injured, I think that by his arm rifle or something, you know, there was some type of accident in the neck, and he was in Barcelona at the time that there was a civil war inside the Republican side. You know, the Republicans against the Trotskyists and the anarchists, you know, and even he had to leave Spain in a hurry, you know. George Orwell came to, he was, when he was in Spain, he was in a battalion in the Aragon front, that it was an anarchist battalion. Mm-hmm. And well, he, during that time of that civil war between the Spanish Republican side, he was in danger of losing his life, and he left Spain. That was when he wrote, well, later on, Homage to Catalonia and the so famous Animal Farm, you know. He became so disgusted with the communists that they were taking over part of the Republican government, you know. This, you know where George Orwell was born?
In England, I think?
Well, he was born in Burma. You know, the country that is called now Myanmar. Uh-huh. You know, well, that he was born there at the time of colonial England. You know? Very interesting man.
So your family ended up in France for how long?
3 years. You know, from practically from August or beginning of September to March 1940. You know.
Do you remember leaving your home in Badajoz? Do you remember what that was like?
My home in Badajoz, I don't remember anything. I was 2 years old. Oh. You know, I have to have some recollection of friends who were in this camp there, you know, and at the beginning of First World War, you know, First World War started in September of 1939, you know, when the Germans invaded Poland, and at that time France, you know, declared war too, and we had to go to school. I used to go to kindergarten with a gas mask and everything, and we had to put passepartout paper, you know, covering the windows and everything to, you know, like there were drills for, presumably for a German bombardment, you know. They never came, you know. The French, they kept talking about the Maginot Line and things that they were going to resist, and they didn't know that they bypassed their Maginot Line, you know. And we left France 3 months before the Germans came in.
Why did you all leave France?
Because, you know, we saw that the war started, you know, and at that time Mexico, you know, was permitting the Spanish refugees to come in. You know, it's true I didn't come with the group of Spanish refugees. We came through Antwerp in a private ship all the way to New York, and from New York to Mexico in the old Greyhound. You know?
Really? You took a Greyhound from New York City
yes.
To Mexico City?
Yes, even when we crossed into Laredo was the first time that we saw a shoe shiner, you know, limpiabotas, you know, and even my brother got mad because they call him chamaco, and we have never heard the expression chamaco, you know, and it's, but we came to Mexico, and in Mexico I had an uncle that was already there. My father's brother was already there, and he picked us up at the station of the Autobuses del Norte, and even and we were living in Mexico in a hotel for about 2 or 3 weeks until we rented a house in Mexico City. You know?
So that's why you moved to Mexico, though, because you already had your uncle there?
Yes, yeah, and no, because the Spanish government, presumably in exile, was going to be established. And you know, when we were in Mexico, we thought that we were coming back to Spain. You know, every time that you asked me as a child, we said, it's all we're here only for a little while. You know, we thought that even at the end of the war, you know, we were ready to go back to Spain. We thought that Franco was going to be, you know, was the only remnant of the fascist government, you know. And we thought that the Allies will push them out. Even that reunion of Cortes in the Mexican palace, you know, to choose a president and everything. And well, we never came back, you know, during the war. During the war in the Colegio Madrid, when I was in 5th or 6th year, it was, you know, the happiest day that we had was when Clement Attlee won the elections against Churchill. You know, Clement Attlee was a friend of the Spanish Republic. And the day that we were all almost crying was the day that Roosevelt died, you know. Franco Delano Roosevelt died. You know, we were, you know, mourning.
And that's because you saw that as closing the door on returning to Spain?
Yeah, well, because, you know, Franco Delano Roosevelt was a friend of the Spanish Republic in some ways, despite that, and Attlee was a friend of the Spanish Republic. And we thought that we were coming back, you know, in 1945, at the end of the war, when we were ready, you know. And as a child, remember, at that time I was 11 years old, and you asked me, says, what are you going to study? Oh, no, I went to study in Spain. And we never came back. You know.
So when you were in Spain, you went to the Spanish Republican schools.
Yes.
And so what were these like? I had never
Well,
heard of
you know, the thing is this, you know, I had, keep in mind, the Spaniards are not very homogeneous. You know, we had, in this school, we had Catalanes, Vascos, you know, all of them, you know, we were refugees from the Spanish Civil War, but some we didn't have with some of them too many common things, you know. Spain, keep in mind, Spain is very regionalist. You know how many dialects there are in Spain. You know, if you put the television in Galicia, you know, they will speak Gallego. You will not understand almost anything. It's Portuguese, you know, it's a Galaico-Portuguese language. If you go to Barcelona now, they will approach you in Catalan. That is a very difficult language. Or you go in Valencia, too, they approach you in Valenciano, another dialect, you know. And don't tell me the Basque, you know, the Basque, when they talk Basque, it's a very difficult language. It's a monosyllabic type of language. Not all of them, they speak that. You know, in Mexico, even, we have different clubs of the different regions of Spain, and the Basque, we used to belong to the Basque club. We're not Basque, but we used to belong there. They started all the parties talking Basque, but at the end they had to talk Spanish because not all of them speak Basque. You know?
So, but how many kids were there in these Spanish Republicans?
Yes, well, we were, you know, keep in mind, about 400 kids in one school, and in the female, you know, we were separated. Female school was in front of us, there was about 1,200 altogether, you know. And,
so what was the point of the Spanish Republican schools? Why did they have them? Why didn't
well, because, you know, presumably they paid you everything. You know, people that it's pro-Franco, they claim that we took all the gold from Spain. You know, and it's true, the Republic took something, you know. Even there was a ship coming to Mexico called Elvita that brought the treasure that was confiscated during the war. And keep in mind, in Russia, you know, the gold was sent to Russia to pay for the arms that Russia was sending to the Spanish Republic. And at that time, when the Spaniards came, until they established themselves, well, they needed some help. And the government in exile decided to do it, you know.
So this was this was the government in exile who set up the schools?
Yes, yes.
And
They were, even the government in exile was divided in two parts. You know, the one that they were in the side of the old minister pro-Negrin that later on he was dominated by the communists, you could say, was called SERE, it's S-E-R-E. But, and the other one, the Colegio Madrid, was JARE, Junta de Ayuda Republicana en Exilio. There were the two divisions between the Spanish government in exile, you know? The one that they were pro-Negrin and the one that they were against Negrin. The socialist side, the conservative socialist, and the communist in one side. You know, I don't know too much about politics, but that is the way that goes.
That is very interesting. So there was about 1,200 students in these.
Yes, in that one, and in the other ones, there were another, you could say, another good, you know, good, keep in mind, we came 25,000 people, from 20,000 to 25,000 people, and among them we were about a good 4,000 kids, you know.
Why do you suppose that they felt the need to have schools just for the Spanish kids?
Well,
not just
to tell you that the truth, I don't know, because the public schools in Mexico couldn't absorb us, you know, and we didn't go to the Catholic schools, you know. We were mainly, we never talk about religion, you know, we never talk anything about religion. And keep in mind, in Mexico, suppose you have marist brothers in San Antonio, and the marist schools, you know? You know the maristas? The maristas are monjes legos. They don't dress as a monk. You know, they dress like you and me, you know? And I went to the maristas in college, you know? You know, they're nice persons, you know, they never convert me to anything, you know? You know, they used to teach 1 hour religion every morning. I took it, you know, and they used to have mass every May, the Virgin, you know. And that is when I learned something. I used to have a guy from Aragon, a teacher in the Marist brother, that make reference to the priests and monks and nuns that the Spanish Republicans killed. And it's true. You know, they hate, and it was not the government. The government didn't have control. You know, keep in mind, the Spanish Republic, the army and the police and everything was on the other side, you know. They had to be, and the population and everything, they used to have such act in their own. Each party, you know, and each party even had a militia here and there. You know, they were not soldiers until the communists, that they were the only ones that they were organized a regiment, you know, Quinto Regimiento. That was the only organized part of the Spanish Republican Army, you know, in spite of all this multitude of people that they didn't know what to do. And even there is songs about the Quinto Regimiento. Do you remember the Weavers?
Yes.
Well, the Weavers, they used to sing Viva la Quinta Brigada. You know, Peter Seeger later on sang it very well. Mm-hmm. And I think that John Baez too did it.
Interesting.
You know, that is but that was the Quinta Brigada was the communist regiment, the only one organized.
So I'm just trying to understand if the Republicans in exile, if they felt the need to have.
Well, there is still the school there. You go to Mexico, and the Colegio Madrid now even has a secondary school, and it has a college, has a preparatoria.
But it's not necessarily Spanish. You know.
But yes, these are the grandsons.
It is, really.
You know.
How interesting.
You know. You know. It's true. Some prominent Mexicans, they used to come to our schools.
That's very interesting.
You know, keep in mind, when we were in Mexico was the time of the nationalist Mexican nationalists did the expropriation of the oil, you know, Lázaro Cárdenas and everything. Even in our class we had 1 or 2 or 3 Mexicans, you know. You know, we had 1 or 2 Mexicans. You can hear well?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that I need to fix that.
Okay, go ahead.
Real quick, sorry. Sorry to interrupt you.
You have such a good memory, Mr. Aliseda.
Eh?
You have such a good memory.
Well, I leave it.
Yeah.
You know, in Mexico, in the school we had, you know, look how the time changes. When I was in the elementary school in Colegio Madrid, and later on in, you could say, secondary school in Instituto Luis Vives, the other school, there were some few Mexicans that they were sons of prominent politicians, you know? And it's true, later on I went to college, to the marriage school, but this was a different time. The sons of the politicians were in the Catholic school, you know. Even keep in mind, in Mexico there was not permitted to teach religion in school, you know, in a way. I don't know which one of the articles of the Constitution says. Enseñanza must be laica, you know, that was the statement. And but here the son of Miguel Alemán, that used to be the president of Mexico, was there. Casas Alemán, the cousin, the head of the Federal, Distrito Federal, Del Mazo, the ones, even now, some of the sons of those people, they are the ones in power that they were thrown away by this last Obrador. You know, but even, you know, it's funny how now time could be that there's a new generation of the old ones, you know.
So the thing about the religion part of it is very interesting to me.
Well, the religious, we never thought about religion.
So your mother, I think I saw that on
Yeah, my mother was religious.
Catholic.
Eh?
She was Catholic.
Yes,
She didn't go to
yes,
mass.
but my father, you know, in spite that my father was raised in Spain, as a child, the one that sent him to Madrid to be a teacher was the priest of his school. He said, oh, we didn't have, at that time the religion was the teaching, you know. Spain was a country full of analphabets, you know. People that didn't know how to read, you know.
Illiterates.
You know, even you had some students that made, you know, something about Casas Viejas. Well, before Casas Viejas, in 1931, there was a country, was Castilblanco in Extremadura. In 1931, Casas Viejas was in 33. Well, before that, the killing of peasants and everything was in 1931 in Castilblanco, Extremadura. Even the only survivor was the daughter of the guy that the hooch was burned, you know, and she became a libertarian and very famous. Later on was executed by Franco at the beginning of the Spanish Civil War, you know. But that girl, that one was the only survivor, you know, of that Castilblanco too. And those people, they were killed. They got all of them in a hooch in a choza, and they were burned to death, you know. And then, and later on, all the males of the population, they were shot. Mm-hmm.
So, did your parents talk about their feelings about the Spanish Civil War?
No.
They didn't ever discuss it?
Never. Never.
So, did they, in 1939, or 1945, I guess, is when they was like, okay, it's not going to happen, we're not going to go back?
Yeah, well, we...
Did they say anything about it? Did they just say, okay, it's not...
No, that's okay. You know, we were already established in Mexico, business and everything, and, you know, but up to that point, we thought that we were coming back.
So let me ask you this: when you got to Mexico, did you all have funds? Did you have resources? Because your father ended up.
Well,
buying
my
some-
father had some resources, in a way. We were not millionaires, but he did have some resources. We were able to rent a house, and even he started distributing some cognac, until the war. The name was Napoleon Cognac and everything, and until the war stopped all the shipments from France, That and later on, 6 months later, he bought the first pharmacy that I was raised in that pharmacy, But we had some resources. The Republicans were not peasants, The majority of them were professionals, and my father was a lawyer. He couldn't practice in Mexico. That means he went to pharmacy. But look, all the teachers in the universities, in the editorials, and everything were founded by Republicans in Spain, in Mexico. The doctors. I had in the medical school in Mexico. I had 6 or 7 teachers. Very famous teachers that they were Spanish Republicans. And in the school of law too, and in all the schools,
So let me ask you this: so did you start? Because you came to Spain when you were 11 years old. Is that right? How old were you when you were in? I mean, not to Spain, to Mexico.
6.
6 years old in
Yeah.
Mexico. Did you start identifying with being Mexican? Did you
I
start?
guess, yes, well, we identify, it's true, in the way that we talk, they notice that we are some foreigners, or like somebody said, foreigners, but anyway, this, but we identify with Mexico, we identify in every aspect of Mexico, in the movies, look, the movies in the movie industry came a bunch of refugees, that was the time of the Mexican gold, when people important in the world, with a lot of importance in the world, suppose like Luis Buñuel. It's true, Luis Buñuel came first to New York, and but later on he moved to Mexico, and it's true, the first picture that he filmed in Mexico called Los Olvidados, I don't know if you have seen it, it's about the lost city in Mexico City, Ciudad Perdida, Los Olvidados. They wanted to apply El 33, that is the article in Mexico for the foreigner, to expel him. That was Luis Buñuel. Before he was permitted to go back to Spain, and was when he filmed Viridiana with Silvia Pinal, that is an artist now, and it's true, Viridiana, they did not permit it to be shown in Spain. In Spain you couldn't show anything that was anti-Catholic. You could say no anti-Catholic. Spain was a very retrograde country in times of Franco. It was a bunch of ignorant, this, later on it's true, Buñuel moved to France, and he filmed Belle de Jour, with Catherine Deneuve and everything. I don't know if you have seen it. It's, but they were, in the movies, all actors were Mexicans, were Spaniards. The majority of them, that is some of the directors and actors,
Let me ask you this: did your parents? Your mom died in
1950. She was very young. My mother died when she was 50 years old.
What did she die of?
Carcinoma of cervix, uterus.
So, did I assume she never went back to Spain? She never returned to Spain? Your mom?
No, we never went back to Spain. She died in 1950.
So your father?
My father made trips to Europe in the 50s. We were not able to go to Spain. or if he wanted to go in, he would have gone on his own risk, you know. You know, practically, they didn't give amnesty to the people of the government until 1964 or 65, you know. And after you have to go through a permit. In Mexico, there was no embassy of Franco. You know, the embassy was the Spanish Republican embassy in exile. You know, was one of the countries that was recognizing the Spanish Republic in exile. And, but Franco had a delegate, somebody was there, that even that individual, I think later on he was killed. That the representative of Franco, he was killed in the 60s by his boyfriend. He was gay or something, you know.
So when did you return to Spain?
Well, the first time that I went to Spain was in 1978 when I was here. You know.
And how did you feel when you were back in Spain?
Well, I went and I saw some of my cousins, and at that time Franco had died. You know. You know, I felt okay. You know, I feel that Spain was a country, you know, coming up. You know. You know, I didn't go back to Spain because. You know, first of all, look, I had friends that they went back to Spain in 1945. I remember I had the brother of a friend of mine. He said, "Oh, I'm going to Spain as a refugee." He said, "For what?" He said, "Oh, he was to become a bullfighter." And it's true. When he arrived to Spain, when you are 17 or 18 years old, boom, to the army. 2 years, you know, la mili, they call it, you know. And later on he became a bullfighter. It's true, he came back to Mexico in the 50s. He was nobody, but anyway, he was a bullfighter. You know, this, do you like bullfights? No? Well, keep in mind, you have seen, have you seen the picture of John Wayne, the Alamo? Well, that guy that comes in a horse to ask for the rendition of the Alamo, in a horse very straight, that is a famous bullfighter. That is Carlos Russa. You know, there was a Mexican bullfighter, both parents were Spaniards. And it's true, but he became famous during the time of Franco in Spain, you know, until they came back to Mexico in the 50s, you know.
So let me ask you this. So you went to, so your father ended up owning more than one pharmacy in Mexico. How many pharmacies did he own?
He owned two more, three.
Three altogether?
And he had a factory of two of shawls, rebosos, you know. And you know, some of the business he went very bad because there was strikes of the employees and everything. And that, suppose at the end in his life, he had one of those, you know, gravel and construction company, you know, that they have cement and everything. And they had a strike and he couldn't tolerate it and he lost a lot of money there. He was taking money from one place to the other and you know, the strikes finished him up, you know. Mm-hmm.
So you worked in the pharmacies when you were...
Yeah, I worked since I was 6, you know. I helped...
and then you went to medical school in Mexico.
In Mexico City. Okay. And later on I came to Chicago in 58, little company of Mary. And
so
later
tell
on...
me about that. Why did you come to Illinois?
Chicago?
Yeah.
Well, because I had my brother came, he was already in Chicago in a good county, you know.
What was he doing?
My brother was, too, he was a physician, a pediatrician. Oh. You know, and later on, my brother at that time was in Chicago, and he said, "Oh," you know, and I did my residency in Chicago, and the Masonic Hospital, you know, Illinois Masonic. You know. But
so why did you decide on anesthesiology?
Well, in a way, you know, I did 1 year of surgery in little company, but you know, I'm too restless and. You know, I better become, you know, to tell you the truth, I didn't enjoy private practice and surgery, you know. And I went back to anesthesia already late in life. You could say late in life. I was 27 when I went in, you know. You know, it's like this thing, you know, Vietnam. Keep in mind, when I was to Vietnam, I was 33. You know, like I told you, the doctors are subject to the draft up to 35.
Tell me about that, because I don't think we talked about that before we started
Yeah.
recording. So tell me about that. So when you were in Illinois from 58 to 67, did you had to register for the draft?
Yes, you have to, on arrival, when you become a legal resident in this country, you have 6 months to register in the selective service at that time. That is one of your obligations, you know. You don't come as a resident in the country, you don't have to do. But if they give you the green card, so famous green card, you know, at that time you have to register. You have 6 months to do it. You know, and it's true, and a year or something you register and they call you for a physical, and they classify you, you know, like here, they did what they did, you know. It's,
So they classified you as 4F.
for it, yeah.
And why was that?
Because as a foreign physician, you still haven't taken the state board yet. You follow me? And they don't have in your plate what to place a foreign physician, and they said, oh, let's go to put it here.
So it was just a placeholder for a category.
Yeah, they look for the category, and it's true. Every 6 or 7 months, they send you a letter. Say, have you passed your boards and this? When you pass it, I mean, immediately, you know, they move it. But for a while, they keep it for you for it, you know.
So you passed your boards in what year?
Yeah, I passed my boards in 1960.
1960?
Yes, yeah, and but they didn't remove it at that time until I went to the Masonic Hospital, you know, that time they removed it. And they put, well, first of all, they send you 1A, and that means that you're draftable, and later on 2A, professional deferment, something, you know, and later on they saw this guy is becoming too old already for us, let's go to call him, you know. You know, it's this is the eternal question that people ask. Oh, he said, oh, you went to Vietnam, and they usually tell me, he said, oh, you went to Vietnam, but you're so old, you know, like at that time, you know. And he said, well, that's okay. Oh, you went to Vietnam and you are not a citizen. You know, they don't know anything about it, you know. You know, and all these questions that they don't make sense, you know.
So you were saying that they said, do you want to volunteer?
Yes.
So
well, they paid the fund that says volunteer. You know, we were, in a way, we're obligatory volunteers.
Who told you that, though?
Eh?
Who told you that? Do you want to volunteer?
No, the army.
Oh, the Army.
You know, when you're drafted, you have to apply to, you don't want to go as a draftee, you know, as a grunt, you know, you apply to the reserves, you know, and they give you grade, you know.
Okay, so you applied to the reserves first?
Yes, and they tell you're forced to apply to the reserve. You know? Suppose like when they get the draft, now say, oh, present yourself in the at that time we used to live in Hazel Crest, Illinois, in Homewood. Go to the train station, you know, to take you to Great Lakes, I don't know what place. And they said, no, in that case you called by telephone and said, look, you know, I want to apply to the reserve, you know, and that's all. You apply, and when you apply to the reserve, it's supposed to be a voluntary, you know. You know, it's true, you don't have, or you go as a draftee, or you go through the reserve, you know.
Okay, so you went to the reserves, and then they called you up.
Well, immediately. As soon as you go to the reserve, they know where you're going, you know. Even immediately, they send you a letter, oh, this P.O. San Francisco, you know, P.O. San Francisco is, you know, I was a month here in San Antonio for basic training, presumably, and a month later, you go to Vietnam. Even when I arrived to Vietnam was the tail end of the Tet Offensive, you know. This was beginning of February. You know, the 10th offensive was 15 days before. It's true, The first place I went in Vietnam was in Nha Trang, very nice place, you know, with villa and everything, you know. You know, I was 3 months there in the field hospital, you know, and that is a nice hospital. But later on, the other 9 months, I went to the 18th surgical. You know, we were in tents. You know, later on, it's true, the hospital were those canvas type of ribs, you know. And we were the most northern hospital in Vietnam.
You were the what?
Most northern, the north part of Vietnam. Only north of us, about 4 miles, there was another one, a Marine Hospital in Dong Ha. But Quang Tri is the northern province of Vietnam, you know. And it's true, we were not, the Viet Cong wasn't there, you know. This was regular, not Vietnamese army. You know, this regular, a lot of females too.
Lots of females
In the Vietnamese army,
Really
you know.
interesting.
You know, that's interesting, no? They were good fighters, excellent fighters, you know. And it's true, I was never in danger in a way. You know, they used to throw rockets once in a while, you know, you get underneath the weather, you know, but I never felt in danger. Yeah. The only day that I really felt in danger in Vietnam was the day that then Martin Luther King was killed. Because of the rivalry between the Negro personnel and the so-called Southern, you know. And that day I felt in danger. You know.
So was there violence there?
Yes, among themselves, you know. Or, and the other thing that you see is a lot of short artillery rounds. You know, keep in mind, in Vietnam, the guy that threw you the rocket, we were in the middle of a base, they were surrounded by, the guy that threw the rocket, 30 seconds later, there is nothing, he's pulverized. You know, the answer comes, the guy, there is nothing, the poor guy, when he runs, you know. But the other day, there was a very dangerous thing for me too, you know, I saw the worst type of injuries when the day the Army-Navy football team. You know, I don't know if the Army or Navy lost. The only thing that I know is one of them lost and threw a hooch in a grenade underneath the hooch to kill the other guys of the Army. You know,
Did people die?
yeah. So, no, well, 8 or 10 injured there, bad injuries, you know. But really from the enemy, you know, well, we used to get rockets once in a while, you know. You could say once every month, but what is that?
So when Martin Luther King was assassinated, was
Yeah.
there violence? Were people hurt?
Yes. A lot of violence. Not only that, there was a brig there, whereas they had the army, the deserters of what that was burned to the ground, you know, someplace. There was a lot of tension, you know, between Negro personnel and Southerners, you know, mainly the guys from Mississippi, Alabama, that they were there, and among the hospital personnel, you know.
So you had initially not wanted to go to Vietnam, or you didn't want to go to Vietnam.
I didn't. I don't believe in the war. If you study Vietnam, well, Dien Bien Phu, you hear about Dien Bien Phu when the French, you know, they're not Vietnamese, that was, you know, the war in Vietnam, in a way, you know, was a liberation war for the Vietnamese to throw out the colonial, you know, power. Keep in mind, when the French, Ho Chi Minh defeated the French in Dien Bien Phu, you know, the French, later on comes the peace talks in the Geneva Convention. Presumably they were going to have elections for reunification in 1956. That the guy that was in power in Vietnam, that Diem or whatever was the name, and United States and everything, they stopped the elections. You know, Vietnam, Vietnam was a war. I didn't believe in the war. You know, when they told me, "Do you want to apply?" I said, "No, then you know, in the liberation war, I didn't give a damn if they were communists or not. You know, the only thing, and they won because they lost a lot of people, you know, keep in mind, I don't know, Vietnam lost at least 2 or 3 million people, you know, but they won the war.
Did you ever consider being a conscientious objector?
Not necessarily, no.
Why not?
No, well, I'm not religious and then, you know, I went because, you know, was my duty, you know, what, but I'm not, you know, the fact that I had to go, you know, I didn't volunteer. What did,
So let me ask you this: when you were there at the hospital, both hospitals, because you were at the field hospital and you were also in a brick and mortar, what was a typical day like for you?
well, difficult day, none of them were difficult in a way.
A typical day.
A typical day, well, you get up, take a bath, you know, we used to, you know, the sanitary, keep in mind, the toilets were gas tops, you know, there, that the guy used to come at noon and burn all the shit there. You know, even one of them, when they were coming back, said to me, said, what I'm going to tell my family, I have been burning shit for 2 years. And the guy was behind me tells him, he said, look, you tell them that you were a sanitary engineer. You know, take a bath and wait for casualties, you know, and that's all. I used to have, you know, I was head of the department there, and I used to have 3 or 4 nurse anesthetists, and we divided the work in such a way that there was one of us on call, and we were on call until, look, we used to have this hospital in platforms, you know, slabs, you know, that they were like canvas ribs, you know, and one day one of the personnel there, you know, they used to get drunk once in a while, you know, get a knife and puncture 3 or 4 of the ribs, you know. You know, that means the hospital deflated. And we were doing nothing for a month. You know, we were not able to admit any people. We went to volunteer to work in Dongha with the Marines, but all because this guy had punctured the ribs at the hospital, you know.
Did they know who did it?
Yes, one of the guys there, you know, once in a while could be, you know, was not unusual that some of them, they were marijuana smoking and things like that, you know. You go to one of those hooches once and, to look for a driver, and you find all of them there. Smelling. You know, there was, you know, Vietnam, everybody, the only one that they were really happy there were the lifers, you know. They didn't have any other war, they were making money. Look, in Nha Trang, that was a nice place in the field hospital. We used to have a company of Koreans, South Koreans. Then another one of nationalist Chinese, you know, all of them. The nationalist Chinese, they have control of the airport. They had U-2s. You know, you remember the one of power? Well, the nationalist Chinese, they were driving from Nha Trang, you know, I think checking all around, you know, and the Koreans, they have a very nice unit with hospital and everything too. These very tough soldiers, you know, they hated communists. I don't know, they were, you know, keep in mind, this is like we used to treat prisoners of war, not Vietnamese soldiers, and they were nice fellows, you know. The thing is that you spend 6 to 7 hours doing colostomies, they breathe. Surgery of war is a very particular surgery. It's, unless, suppose, it's a surgery of debridement, you know. You are dealing here with high velocity missiles. You know, the bullet goes in your shoulder, and the speed and the destroys the tissue, you know. All the tissue becomes like a mass of gelatin, you know, jello there, dead tissue, muscle and everything. And the thing that they do in surgery is go and clean, remove all the dead tissue. And until you see that there's a good contraction of the muscle, good color, and bleeding. And you leave it open. You don't close, you follow me? Because if you close it, you have the danger of sepsis, mainly bacteremia, and that means you do the debridement, there is a big hole there left with the gauze, and later on you close it for secondary infection, later on in 5 or 6, 7 days, you know? It's true, the guy has a bullet in the abdomen, he survives, he hasn't touched the aorta. Well, if it's the large intestine, they have to do a colostomy. You don't close the hole, you know. You have to exteriorize and if it's a small bowel, well, small bowel can take you suture, it's very noble, but large bowel you have to do colostomy. It's a different type of surgery, you know.
So you were doing anesthesiology for this
Yes,
surgery, right?
yeah, well, but you see the surgery.
Of course.
You know, this, surgery of war is completely different, you know, it's the brain meat is like the, you know, look, I'm going to compare it to the surgery of the bullfights. You know, a guy gets gore, well, he gets the aorta or something, well, you have to do repair, you know, of the femoral or whatever it is, but if it's the muscle, well, you have to clean up the muscle, and you don't close, you know. You don't close, you leave it open. You're not authorized to close until 6, 7 days after he's with antibiotics and everything, you know. That means it's a different type of war in here, you know.
Were there things that when you first got there, were there parts of this assignment that you were not prepared for, that it really surprised you?
No, really nothing.
No.
Nothing, nothing. That the type of injuries and no, I don't think so. It's you're not used to see so many high velocity. You know, the bullet of the AK-47 or the M16, it's a small bullet. The cartridge is big, you know, but comes with such speed. It's a high velocity missile goes and when it injures any part, you know, let's go to say that doesn't touch an artery, but goes only the muscle, you know, the whole muscle is dead, you know, from the bullet. You know, and that is the one that you have to clean and remove it. You leave it there, you leave a part, and the guy will die of sepsis, you know.
So you were there in Vietnam from what year to what year?
I was in Vietnam from February 68 to February 69. 1 year.
So 1 year.
1 year.
How did you end up getting to McAllen?
McAllen, because I had a friend, you know, after I finished in the army, I went back to my old group in Blue Island, Illinois. And I wanted to come back closer to Mexico, you know, and, well, mainly temperature-wise, you know. Was when I applied, first, before Texas, I applied for reciprocity, you know, to New Mexico, and I got my license in New Mexico, and it's well, Albuquerque, you know, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, I like it, you know, in a way too, but in McAllen, there was, they called me from McAllen. I had a guy, Cantu, that was working in Chicago, I am in Chicago, and he called me, you know, and I said, well, I go there. I had to sacrifice something financially, otherwise, he said, but anyway, I wanted, it doesn't make any difference, I came here. You know, I left my old group that I had been for 8 years, you know.
So, this was what year you got to 73 you got to McAllen? In 73 you got to McAllen?
In 73, in September 73.
And were you married at the time?
Yes, yes, well, you know, I have a son that is 62. You know, José, the one that did the district attorney in Big County, José, you know, he's 62 years old. And Tina, my daughter, the one that used to be a computer analyst she's, how old is Tina now, 59?
No, 61.
Eh?
61.
61, you know, just look.
So when you went to Vietnam, you were already married.
Yes, Ernie was 1.5.
Oh, that must have been very hard
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be
yeah.
away from your family.
Ernie was 1.5, the other one was 10, and Tina was 9.
So, how did serving in the military and specifically being in Vietnam, how did that affect you?
Well, it didn't affect me. I don't want to talk too much about the war, you know, in a way that, but it didn't affect me. You know, I didn't get any post-stress syndrome, you know. It's true. It affected me in the way that you see there was unwinnable type of war, you know, that when you knew that sooner or later they had to get out. You know, I was not affecting for myself. I felt sorry for the poor guy that used to go into the field, you know. I was not afraid. I didn't suffer that tell me, oh, they're going to kill me there. No. I never went to the field, you know. And to tell you the truth, we didn't have in the hospital, we had only one casualty, you know, a dentist that used to like to go into helicopters when he shouldn't go to helicopters. You know, you're not going to be a hero, you're doing something that you shouldn't do, you know. But it didn't affect me too much.
So did you visit McAllen before you decided to move here?
Well, we had gone through here, we have gone through McAllen when we used to trip from Mexico, we used to make trips to once a year to Mexico by car, you know, all the way from Chicago and all the way through Oklahoma and here. Even I knew the old Highway 66 all the way to Oklahoma Turnpike, you know, the old 66. You remember the Burma shaved signs, you know, that they used to have a punchline, you know? You read the lines. Well, that is reading the Burma shaved signs in Missouri there.
And so your wife was someone who actually worked at your father's pharmacy at...
No, her mother.
Oh, her mother, I see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But,
So that's how you met your wife?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So she was in Mexico City as well?
Mexico
She was in
City.
Mexico City?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay. So when you came to McAllen, y'all moved to McAllen. Did you start to feel that this was your community? Is this like this is
Well,
you know?
in my community or not, I'm not too sociable, you know. You know, and to tell you the truth, it's like I started interested in the so-called Mexican-American War, and it's surprising how much ignorance there is in the whole population here that they don't know. It's true, when they talk against Mexico is part of all the problems that Mexico has, it really I go after them, you know. But keep in mind, here, look, 95% of the people here hasn't been in Palo Alto. You know, Palo Alto has a friend, well, they don't know anything. You know, they don't know that there was the war, practically the first of the Mexican, so-called Mexican War, you know, and they talk about, the usual answer is, I was never taught that, you know. Or some other, you know, they tell you, well, I don't understand because of your accent. They say, well, that's okay. You know, it's like, And this is a very interesting place. You think about well, you start reading. Once until I found out about the book. Have you read the Exodus from the Alamo? Well, 80% of the people in the Alamo died outside of the Alamo. they died running, they were not offering a resistance. They died running. It's true. The Mexican Lancers, they were able to get them. And here they told you so. David Crockett and everything. Well, David Crockett was alive. They brought to Santa Ana. Santa Ana decided to kill him there. The knowledge of history here is, is usually, well, it's true. They never taught them anything.
Do you think that was intentional?
Eh?
Do you think that's intentional that they didn't teach them that? That children aren't taught that in school?
In what way? That
Maybe there's a reason not to teach them that.
well, they never taught them that. But even the same Mexicans here, they act in a way that they don't want to know anything about it. Well, what can we do? It's but here's a very interesting place. You find all this thing. It's like look, the patrona of Extremadura in Spain is the Virgin of Guadalupe. And the one in Mexico, well, it's true. The Spaniards were fanatics in a way too. It's in the name, and the Virgin. Well, in Mexico, it's true. The Virgin of Guadalupe has become a symbol of nationality. Even the Jews, the Mexican Jews, they believe in the Virgin of Guadalupe. Have you been in Spain? Never.
I have been in Spain, but I haven't been to the
To Guadalupe?
I have never been there.
Well, that is at the entrance of Extremadura, and it's a
Yeah,
it's an ugly figure. It's a figure of wood this size. It's true. They dress them with the caps and things with gold. Gold from Mexico and Peru.
Interesting.
In spite that there is a Virgin Guadalupe in some other there is one in Bolivia. There is one. Keep in mind the conquistadors were extremeños. The majority of them were from southern Spain. At the time of the conquest, the only people that could come to conquer and live in America were the Castilians. The Catalonians and the Basque and everything, they were not permitted. They were the Castilians, that they were, the Andaluces and two Extremeños. They were the conquistadores. It's interesting. In that case, you have been to Spain. What part of Spain have you been?
In Cádiz and then Santander, but we've traveled around Spain a little bit. Yeah, we've never been to Extremadura. We went to
Well,
Cádiz.
Cádiz, keeping Cádiz, remember, was the port of exit for all the expeditions of Cristobal Colon.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that when I lived there, when I was staying there, they talked like Puerto Ricans, and they said, "Where do you think the Puerto Ricans came from? They came from the lineage from south
The Puerto Ricans, that
really is very, very similar."
Well, mainly keep in mind too, they came from the Canary Islands too, because the ships they have to stop in the Canary Islands, before even Cristobal Columbus had a girlfriend in one of the islands, and he stopped for a while there to visit her,
So, Mr. Aliseda, let me ask you this. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you think that I should...
About the Spanish Civil War?
No, just in general, in the whole interview.
And then,
We're winding down.
well, not together.
Yeah.
This, keep in mind, I didn't leave the war, If I leave the war, was in exile, In Mexico, I met a lot of important politicians, friend of my father, you know, Martinez Barrio, Giral, the one that the first minister, and the other one that they were diputados, you know, my father, and everything. But I didn't suffer the war because I spent the whole war in France. You know, myself as an individual is, you know, my hometown was taken almost immediately, you know, and in Mexico I have lived all my life working, you know, that's all, until I came here. There is nothing really exciting. You know, the Civil War, I'm going to tell you, in Spain, there were murders in both sides. You know, don't believe that this is black and white. It's true, the Republican government didn't have control of the people. You know, in the Franco side, it's true, was automatic. You know, that the Franco side, the killing of all the people that had voted for the Popular Front and everything was coming. In the Republican side was the populace. You know, they were afraid. Supposedly when the Franco was coming to Madrid, they got all the prisoners in the jail, and they got them out and they killed them. 2,000 of them in Paracuellos, you know. You know, that means both sides they were killing. Someday you should see pictures. You know, now there is a multitude of pictures and books and writers, Preston. The best book is mainly Hugh Thomas. You know, Hugh Thomas is the best book of the Spanish Civil War from the point of view of the fighting. But from the social point of view, Preston or something, I don't know, they have written a lot of books, you know. There is 1,000 books. You know what you can learn about the Spanish Civil War? In YouTube. In YouTube you can see from there, from the beginning, everything. Everything since, you know, since the internet came out, you know, you can really learn everything.
Are there any last things that you'd like to add?
No.
Well, thank you so much. This has been
You know, that's
really
okay.
appreciate it.
You know, this,
Yeah, I forget the writer's name. There's actually been a lot of oral histories of the Spanish.
you know, and don't forget to listen to Atahualpa Yupanqui. Yeah. You know, it's almost sure you have heard Atahualpa Yupanqui.
I have never heard of that.
Never,
I've never heard that.
you know.
Here,
It's,
so I'm gonna explain a couple of things to you
Yeah.
because there's the